I cut myself on a filing cabinet at work, and something started swimming through my veins. It happened on a Wednesday. I remember because Wednesdays were always slow at the warehouse, and I was rushing through inventory checks, trying to finish early. The metal edge of the cabinet caught my forearm just below the elbow. A clean slice, maybe 2 inches long. It bled more than I expected, bright red pooling in the crease of my arm. I wrapped it in paper towels, applied pressure, like you're supposed to, and went back to work. By the time my shift ended, it had stopped bleeding. I didn't think about it again. That night, lying in bed, I felt something move. It was subtle at first, a flutter beneath the skin near the cut, like a muscle twitch. I pressed my fingers against the spot and felt it again. A ripple, something shifting under the surface. I told myself it was healing tissue, nerves reconnecting, the normal process of a wound closing itself. But when I turned on the lamp and looked closely, I saw it, a shadow, moving, traveling up my forearm toward my elbow, a dark line beneath my skin that pulsed and writhed. I watched it for 10 minutes, my breath caught in my throat, as it crawled another inch upward. Then it stopped, disappeared. I couldn't find it no matter how hard I looked. I convinced myself I'd imagined it. That exhaustion and dim lighting had played tricks on my eyes. I turned off the lamp and tried to sleep. The next morning, there were 3 of them. I saw them clearly in the bathroom light. 3 dark shapes, each about the size of a grain of rice, swimming through the veins of my forearm. They moved with purpose, gliding through my bloodstream like tiny fish. I could trace their paths, watch them travel from one vein to another, disappearing at my elbow and then reappearing near my wrist. My hands started shaking so badly I had to grip the sink to steady myself. I called in sick to work and drove straight to the urgent care clinic on Maple Street. The doctor was young, maybe 30, with the tired eyes of someone who'd seen too many hypochondriacs. I showed him my arm, pointed to the shapes moving beneath my skin. He looked for a long time, then he smiled, that patient, patronizing smile medical professionals give when they think you're wasting their time. "I don't see anything unusual," he said. "The cut is healing nicely. No signs of infection. They're right there." I pressed my finger against one of the moving shapes. "Look, right there." He looked again. His smile didn't waver. "Mr. Carver, what you're seeing is likely just normal blood flow through your veins. Sometimes when we focus on our bodies, we notice things we've never paid attention to before. It can seem strange, but it's completely normal. This isn't normal." My voice came out louder than I intended. "There are things in my blood. I can see them moving." He ordered blood work to placate me, told me the results would take a few days. He gave me a pamphlet about anxiety and suggested I follow up with my primary care physician. I left feeling more alone than I'd ever felt in my life. By Friday, there were dozens. They filled my forearm like a highway of traffic. Dark shapes flowing through my veins in both directions. I could feel them now, not just see them. A constant squirming sensation, like ants crawling beneath my skin. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. I spent hours in front of the bathroom mirror, tracking their movements, trying to understand what they were. Some were larger than others, some moved faster, and they were spreading. I found them in my upper arm, in my shoulder, in the veins of my neck. The urgent care clinic called with my blood work results. Everything was normal. Perfect, even. The nurse sounded almost annoyed when I insisted something was wrong. She told me to make an appointment with a psychiatrist and hung up. That night, I felt them reach my chest. It was different than the sensation in my limbs. In my chest, I could feel them pressing against something vital, crowding around my heart. The pressure was immense, like someone had reached inside my rib cage and was squeezing. I called 911, told them I was having a heart attack. The ambulance arrived within 6 minutes. The paramedics found nothing wrong. My heart rate was elevated, they said, but that was probably panic. My blood pressure was normal. My oxygen levels were fine. They wanted to take me to the hospital anyway, just to be safe. But I'd have to pay for the ambulance ride and the ER visit. My insurance had a $5,000 deductible. I told them I'd drive myself if it got worse. I didn't go to the hospital. I went home and stood in front of the mirror, watching the shapes multiply in my reflection. They were in my face now. I could see them swimming through the veins in my temples, crawling across my forehead. When I opened my mouth, I saw them in the vessels under my tongue. I tried to tell myself the doctors were right, that this was anxiety stress, some kind of psychosomatic episode. But I could feel them moving, pressing, multiplying, and I could hear them. It started as a whisper, so faint I thought it was the wind outside my apartment window, but the window was closed. The sound was coming from inside me, a wet, slithering sound, like something dragging itself through mud, and underneath that, something else, something that might have been breathing. By Saturday morning, I couldn't ignore what was happening to my hands. My fingers had swollen overnight, not dramatically, but enough to notice. The veins stood out against my skin, dark and bulging, and I could see the shapes inside them more clearly now. They weren't just moving, they were feeding. I watched one attach itself to the wall of a vein and begin to pulse, growing larger as it drew something from my blood. My finger twitched involuntarily, then it twitched again and again, like something was pulling strings I couldn't see. I wrapped my hands in bandages so I wouldn't have to look at them. It didn't help. I could still feel them underneath, writhing and multiplying. The pressure in my chest had grown worse. Every breath felt labored, like my lungs were fighting for space with whatever was inside me. I tried to research my symptoms online, but everything I found pointed to anxiety or delusions or drug use. Nothing mentioned creatures swimming through veins. Nothing acknowledged what was happening to me. That afternoon, my left index finger burst. I was sitting on my couch, trying to distract myself with television, when I felt a sharp, searing pain in my fingertip. I looked down and saw the skin stretching, bulging outward like a balloon about to pop. The bandage darkened with blood. I unwrapped it with shaking hands and watched in horror as something pressed against the inside of my skin, trying to break through. The skin split, not a clean cut, but a ragged tear. Blood poured out, and with it came something else, something pale and wet and writhing. It was maybe an inch long, segmented like a worm, with dozens of tiny legs that gripped at the air. It pulled itself free from my finger and dropped onto my lap. I screamed and flung it away. It landed on the carpet and began crawling toward the wall. I crushed it with my shoe. It burst like a grape, spraying clear fluid across the floor. The smell was overwhelming. Rotten meat and chemicals. I stood there, hyperventilating, staring at the smear on my carpet. Then I looked at my finger. The hole it had left behind was deep, exposing muscle and bone. Blood dripped steadily onto the couch cushion, but I could see inside the wound, and what I saw made my vision blur. There were more of them, dozens more, crawling through the exposed tissue, fighting their way toward the opening. I ran to the bathroom and wrapped my finger in gauze, applying so much pressure my hand went numb, but I could feel them pushing, trying to escape. I took every painkiller I could find in my medicine cabinet. Ibuprofen, acetaminophen, an old prescription for codeine from a dental surgery. I swallowed them dry and waited for the pain to fade. It didn't fade. It spread. By evening, 3 more fingers had burst. My right hand was barely functional, wrapped in blood-soaked bandages that did nothing to stop what was happening. The things that came out were different sizes now. Some small like the first one, others longer, thicker, with more legs and what might have been eyes. Clusters of black dots along their pale bodies. They screamed when they emerged. Not loudly, but I could hear it. A high-pitched shriek that echoed inside my skull, and the sound was familiar. It took me hours to place it, but when I did, my mind nearly broke. They were screaming with my voice, not exactly my voice, but close enough. The same pitch, the same cadence, like recordings played backward or through water. Every time one of them tore free from my flesh, it released a sound that mimicked my own screams. And they weren't just screaming randomly, they were repeating things I'd said, fragments of sentences, words I'd spoken earlier that day. Help me. Something's wrong. Please. I locked myself in the bathroom and turned on the shower to drown out the sounds. But I could still hear them, still feel them. They were in my legs now, in my stomach, in my throat. Every part of me was infested. My veins had turned black, visible through my skin like a network of rot spreading through my body. I looked at my reflection in the mirror and barely recognized myself. My face was gaunt, gray, covered in dark lines. My eyes were bloodshot and wild. Something moved behind my left eye. I leaned closer to the mirror, watching as a shadow passed across my vision. It was inside my eye, swimming through the fluid. I could see it when I looked to the side, a dark shade moving through my peripheral vision. I pressed my fingers against my eyelid and felt it squirm away. That's when I made the decision. I couldn't live like this. Couldn't let whatever was inside me continue to grow and spread and consume. The doctors wouldn't help. No one believed me. I was alone with this thing, this infestation, and it was killing me from the inside out. If I was going to die, I needed to see it, needed to understand what it was. I opened the medicine cabinet and found the razor blade I used to scrape paint off windows. It was small, sharp, clean. I held it in my trembling hand and looked at my forearm, where everything had started. The cut from the filing cabinet had healed, leaving only a faint scar. But beneath that scar, I could see them, hundreds of the gnome, packed so tightly together that my arm looked almost black. I pressed the blade against my skin, just below the original cut. My hand was shaking so badly I almost couldn't do it, but I had to see. I pulled the blade across my arm, not deep, just enough to open the skin. Blood welled immediately, but I wiped it away and looked inside. They poured out. Not slowly, not one at a time. They erupted from the wound like water from a burst pipe. Hundreds of them, pale and writhing, each one screaming with fragments of my voice. They spilled onto the bathroom floor, crawling over each other in a desperate frenzy. Some tried to crawl back inside me. Others fled toward the walls, the toilet, the shower drain. The sound was deafening. Hundreds of tiny voices all screaming in unison. Something's wrong. Please, please. I fell backward, hitting my head against the bathtub. The razor blade clattered from my hand. I tried to stand but slipped in the blood, and the creatures in went down hard on my side. They were crawling on me now, climbing up my legs, my arms, trying to find a way back inside. I could feel them pushing against my wounds, forcing themselves into my bloodstream. And then I understood. The realization hit me with such force that I stopped breathing. These weren't parasites. They weren't invading me. They were me. Parts of me that had split off, multiplied, become something separate but still connected. Every cell in my body was slowly transforming into these things, replacing me. Piece by piece, cell by cell. I wasn't infested. I was becoming them. The thing in my eye pushed harder. I felt my eyeball bulge, felt the pressure building. I clawed at my face, trying to stop it, but it was too late. My eye ruptured with a wet pop, and something large and segmented fell into my hands. It was different from the others, more developed. It had my eye color. Parts of my iris were still visible on its body, broken into geometric patterns along its segments. I swear it looked up at me, and it opened a mouth I didn't know it had, and screamed, not with my voice this time, with something older, something that had been waiting inside me for much longer than I'd realized. I'm writing this now because I don't have much time left. My arms are barely functional. Every few minutes, another finger bursts. Another section of skin splits open. The bathroom floor is covered with the mail. Thousands of pale, writhing things, all screaming in voices that sound like mine. They're crawling up the walls. They started coming out of my mouth. I can feel them in my throat, pushing past my tongue, forcing their way between my teeth. My chest hurts. Not the pressure I felt before. This is different. This is them eating their way out. I can feel them chewing through muscle, scraping against bone, working toward my heart. When they reach it, I don't know what will happen. If I'll die, if I'll transform completely, if there will be anything left of me at all. The worst part is that I'm not scared anymore. I should be terrified, but I can feel my emotions dampening, fading, like someone's turning down the volume on everything that makes me human. The fear's being consumed along with everything else, and in its place is something new. A hunger, not for food, for something else, something I don't have a name for. They're not just replacing me, they're eating the parts of me that made me afraid, that made me panic, that made me want to survive. And as those parts disappear, I'm starting to understand them better, starting to feel what they feel, want what they want. I can hear them calling now, not screaming anymore, calling. They want me to let go, to stop fighting, to accept what I'm becoming. And the horrible truth is that part of me wants to, the part that's already changed, the part that's already them. My right arm just split from elbow to wrist. They're pouring out faster now, hundreds with every heartbeat. They're building something in the corner of the bathroom, stacking their bodies on top of each other, creating a shape I almost recognize. It might be a new me, made of thousands of segments, thousands of mouths, all speaking in unison. I tried to call for help, but my phone is covered in them now. They've chewed through the screen when I picked it up. They swarmed over my hand and I dropped it in the toilet. I can hear it buzzing underwater, an alarm I set days ago, a reminder for something I'll never do. My heart just skipped. I felt them reach it, felt their tiny legs gripping the muscle, felt them bite down. The pain is extraordinary, beyond anything I've experienced, but it's fading quickly. Everything's fading. The bathroom light is getting dimmer, or maybe my remaining eye is failing. I can't tell anymore. I can see my reflection in the chrome of the faucet. What's left of me? My face is hollowing out. My skin is gray and thin like tissue paper. I don't look human anymore. I look like a shell, an empty container for whatever is growing inside. They're speaking now, all of them at once, using my voice but saying things I've never said, seeing things I've never heard. It's beautiful in a way I can't describe, like 1,000 versions of me learning to exist as one thing, one organism, one purpose. I think I'm dying, or I think I'm being born. I can't tell the difference anymore. My chest just opened. I didn't cut it. It just split like rotten fruit. And they're climbing out. So many of them. More than I thought possible. They're covering the walls now, the ceiling, the mirror. Everywhere I look is just pale writhing bodies and black eyes and mouths that scream with my voice. But they're not running away. They're not trying to escape. They're waiting for the last of me to die. Waiting for the transformation to complete. Waiting to become whatever they're supposed to become. And I'm helping them. I don't know when I started helping them, but I am. I'm pulling at my skin, tearing it away to let them out faster. I'm opening my mouth wider so more can escape. I'm clawing at my chest so they can reach my heart. I can feel it stopping now. My heart slowing down, each beat weaker than the last. They've eaten so much of it that it barely functions. But I'm not dying. I can feel that clearly. I'm not dying. I'm multiplying. Every piece of me that falls away becomes 100 of them. Every drop of blood that hits the floor sprouts new segments. I'm not ending. I'm spreading, growing, becoming something vast and hungry and so much more than I ever was. The last thing I see with my human eye is my hand falling off, just dropping from my wrist like it was never attached. And from the stump comes a fountain of them. Thousands, tens of thousands, all screaming my name, all wanting the same thing. They want the fear, the last pieces of fear still hiding in my brain, still making me human. They're hungry for it, need it, and I can feel them crawling up my spine, pushing into my skull, reaching for that final part of me that remembers what it was like to be afraid, and then I won't remember anything at all.